taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. It's May 18th, 2019. This is the Saturday morning edition of the show. It's afternoon for a lot of our viewers in Europe. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to you if it's the evening as well. My name is Asheninity, and I'm here as always with Cybsidian. How are you doing today?
Tired, very tired. Oh my, things are getting busy. Oh, good lord, and it's not even. Oh no, wait, it is halfway through May. I was gonna say, my goodness, it's not even halfway through May, but it was halfway through May 3 days ago.
Definitely more than halfway through May. We're just a couple of weeks away from June, which means we're a couple of weeks away from E3, and then a few weeks away from Super Mario Maker 2, which I've got to say I am incredibly hyped about. I watched the Nintendo sort of expose on that yesterday. Man, yeah, it's looking awesome. If you're kind of a Nintendo geek like me, then that's pretty exciting stuff. That's mostly when I'm watching Twitch streamers, which I don't typically watch on Twitch, but I watch their YouTube edited versions afterwards to get the highlights and stuff. That's typically what I'm watching is Mario stuff. So, anyway.
Well, they have been making a huge inroad, and they've also been, right now, for the majority of, gamers, especially old school gamers, Sony is basically viewed as, the black sheep now, and their sales have almost grinded to a stop in Japan.
Well, I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that they're treating us like children. I don't know.
Well, it's like I said, it's a bunch of factors. But right now, Nintendo has been capitalizing on that. They just surpassed lifetime sales of the PlayStation 4 with the Nintendo Switch in Japan, which is huge. It's like, yes. Whoa.
And you know, I just got a Switch. My wife got me one for my birthday, which was, she spent way too much money on me, but I guess I shouldn't really complain about that. But I've been playing Mario Odyssey with my kids, and we have just been having an absolute blast. So, the Wii U was a bit of a misfire, but man, they've really knocked it out of the park with the Switch. Let me tell you. The hype for this podcast blows me away. Hello, everybody who's been chatting since, at least an hour and a half ago. I know that, some of you were talking in the chat before that, but it's cut me off here. It's like truncated the chat, so I can't shout all of you out. But hello, Ghost Fixer, Grazian Almedo. I don't recognize your name. Welcome to the podcast if you're new. Niv Aussie, Ghost Fixer, Cuckoo, Russ Hunt. And who else here? Alad's Ginger, Megan Smart, Sinister Sinner, and Andre Velasquez, Double Asterisks, and Lucas Tepper. And if I've missed anybody, Bloker710. If I've missed anybody, my apologies. We like to try and shout out those of you who are, chatting early in our chat, our live chat. And if you are listening live today, please say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast, and don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well. We appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us a day or two to get the podcast up to the audio platform, so if you want the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description to subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. I should change up my script, because I find that, I read the same words every edition of the podcast, and I start to put weird inflections in, and I don't know why I do that.
Out of nowhere?
Yeah, it's like, da-da-da-da, don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it. I don't know, it's weird. You say the same thing too many times, it starts to lose meaning. It just becomes routine. That muscle memory just kicks in, and then your mind starts to drift. There have been times when I start thinking about, I don't know, just weird stuff, like what I'm gonna have for lunch while I'm reading the script, and then it's like, oh wait, I just hit the end of the paragraph. What am I doing now? Anyway, so we got some interesting stuff. HTK Gaming says, make it a recording. Ash says Niv Aussie, or make Cyb do it. Yeah, bring you some variety. Maybe we'll hire some celebrity guests to read the
I I would probably break in like halfway through the read and start talking about something that momentarily caught my interest. It's like you remember that movie Up with the dog, and like every few seconds it would be like squirrel, and it would like look in a random direction. Yeah, it's that's like me with like
that's
thoughts.
exactly you, except you would recite an entire you would recite the entire Wikipedia article about squirrels before.
Did you know that squirrels carry the Black Plague virus?
Oh boy. Okay, before we let's get on to our news for the day. Before
it's not super contagious, but it's there.
Well, I'm definitely glad. Megan Smart. Don't forget to gently caress the like button. It needs a gentle touch. Well,
that's funny.
Maybe your like button does. All right. So we have CD Projekt Red has been in the news with. Okay, so there's an interesting headline from Kotaku, and if you're a regular listener, you know my feelings about Kotaku headlines. I find that they I don't know, they often, they're clickbait. Let's just put it right on the line there. They're clickbait. So this headline says Cyberpunk 2077 development intensifies, CD Projekt Red pledges to be, quote, more humane to its workers. What does that tell you? That immediately makes you think CD Projekt Red is being inhumane to their developers?
Or was inhumane, yeah, which I think is funny because we dispelled this myth with the lead on this story being the Mad Queen. Altogether, we had contacted nearly 50 employees, which at the time they only had. At the time that we were talking about and asking about, this was when the studio had had around 300 employees. So yes, it wasn't everybody, but it was a vast chunk of them. Not everybody will ever talk to anybody about working conditions, so you got to scratch about 30-40% right off the top right there, because a lot of them just don't do that kind of thing. But out of the ones that we have left, and the fact that we did make quite a bit of noise with this, and we had nobody reach out to kind of correct the record or add their input or anything like that. Basically what we got, and basically what we discovered, is that this really was overblown. Like, it was a lot of, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of crunch. And crunch was significant. However, it was nothing that nobody could handle, aside from the one person who complained and made a lot of noise. The one. We went back and forth trying to confirm everything that we had heard, trying to set up some level of confirmation that more than one person was angry like this. And what we discovered in multiple scenarios is that it all came back to the same singular person who made multiple entries on anonymous sites, who pointed us to the 5 or 6 other examples that we were able basically to backtrack to them. We had one other person who was a little upset over them, but that was mostly due to some work issues that are stereotypical of all work issues. There was one person who was a little annoyed at the way that they were treated, but as far as like on the social level, but were not did not find that certainly didn't come from the heads, the studio heads, any team leaders of note, anything like that. So all in all, you had like 3 people, 2 of which were like, it's kind of to be expected, right? And
we're talking about a studio with hundreds of employees, and so absolutely, you're going to have a percentage of those who are dissatisfied with the working conditions. That's absolutely reasonable, and so we're talking about 1% or maybe a little more than 1% who got really vocal on the internet. So then, anyway, the Mad Queen, again, like you said, took the lead on that. She dove in and talked to around 40 of the
nearly 50 once you
developers and
factor
employees.
once you factor in my contacts and the and some of the other people that we didn't go through directly, she couldn't talk to them directly, but I or somebody else did. We had over 50.
Right. We
And so
discovered through that process that yes, okay, things are not perfect there. Things are definitely not perfect there, and there does seem to be some issues with middle management, or at least there were at that time. But for the most part, people were not. The studio
but
wasn't
again, it's like
self-destructing.
I can't clarify this enough. Nothing that is outside of industry standard. One big complaint was that some team leads would go out, they play a brand new game, then they come back and they try to replicate some cool thing that they played in that weekend game and try and add it somewhere into the game. And that resulted in a lot of running around in circles, kind of chasing your tail kind of thing. Because you want to add in a cool feature, but the game or the engine is not designed for it, so you end up trying to shoehorn it in, and that's my dog barking. So ultimately, you just kind of, you end up petering yourself out and not really using it. So to answer the question, what is happiness? Happiness is basically boils down to contentment and being able to find joy in small things. That's basically what happiness is.
For those who are not watching live or who are listening on the audio, Saib is responding to a chat question there. What is happiness?
So
That was you startled me there. That sounded like that was a random non sequitur.
yeah, well, sorry. Responding to the comments, I should always clarify. So yeah, that's. And I actually forgot to send that line, so I'll just pop that out. So that's really like, this is normal stuff. We have talked to dozens of studios, and this is a really common thing that happens. And I would say that most team leaders think this way. Most team leaders, they're on the lookout for something cool. They're on the lookout for something different. When they find something different, they'll kind of chase their tail. Sometimes the development of it helps them down the road. And what I mean by that is, so when you have a developer who, a team leader who looks at a cool thing, wants to try and see if they can work it into the game, they mess around with it a little bit, they discover it doesn't work, so they stop working on it and they move towards something else. That is sometimes necessary in development, in-game development. And I really have to, emphasize this. That is sometimes completely necessary. There's a lot of games where you wouldn't have them if somebody wasn't experimenting with something else, figured out it didn't work, but then that gave them an idea for something different. That is, it's like playing with Lego, right? You're building something, doesn't work, but it gives you an idea to do something else, something different. Mm-hmm. And so it's not something that should be universally panned. It's universally like eye-rolled pretty much by most of the devs that are working on this stuff when their team leader walks in and says, "Oh man, I just played God of War, and can we add a little like 9-year-old kid that follows you everywhere?" And you're like, "Oh, for crying out loud, really? This again? Right. This okay? I guess we'll run some tests." And then you run some tests and you come back and you're like, okay, it's not really working because it doesn't behave like a kid, it behaves more like a dog. And then she's like, oh, okay, but maybe we can take that dog AI and turn it into like a pet. Oh, well, that's actually not a bad idea. That's the kind of thinking process that can sometimes happen. And I'm just throwing that out as a generalized example. Mm-hmm. But that's how development works. Yes, sometimes there's a lot of tail chasing that doesn't actually take you anywhere. But overall, it does at least like confirm one or two smaller things, and then it also like makes it so that not to chase another direction, right? Mm-hmm.
Right.
Kind of like when Thomas Edison was trying to make the first bulb for light. It's like he tried 2,000 different ways, and people would ask him like, "Why are you trying? Why do you continue to try?" And he goes, no. I've not failed. I've just found 2,000 different ways that don't work. I need to find the one that does.
Right.
And so,
Right. Anyway, let's dive a little more into what's going on actually right now. And so again, Jason Schreier at Kotaku put out this report where he says, the Cyberpunk 2077 is, highly anticipated, but it's coupled with the hype is a burning question. Are workers at CD Projekt Red, the Polish studio behind the game, ruining their lives to make it? This is just starting off with so much clickbait and so much negative framing that this is really, really bugging me.
Because it's framing it in your mind to immediately develop a negative thing within your mind, which Jason will then go to the length of telling you not to worry about. It's like walking down the street and informing you that there's a good chance that you might die. Walking past some random person and informing them that they might die, and the person is going, "What do you mean I might die?" And they're starting to think, like, is this a crazy person? And then the person who's telling them this is, "Oh no, I'm a doctor. I saw your charts the other day." And then now you're starting to get really worried, and you're like, what does this mean? Well, it looks like you may die from old age in the future, but if you stay healthy and work out quite a bit, you'll probably prolong that off quite a decent ways. And so you're like, really? Did you just do that? Like, what is wrong with you? And that's what I feel from this article. Immediately I look at it and I'm like, Jason, what the hell is wrong with you? And I know exactly what he's doing and why he's doing it, and exactly kind of the reasons for it all, but it's still really annoying. It's like, good heavens.
In any case, he's got some quotes from Martin Nowinski here talking about what conditions are like at the company, and it sounds like they are working to improve work-life balance for their employees. They have implemented something called it's a non-mandatory crunch policy, basically, non-obligatory crunch policy. That was it. Was just looking for the quote in the article here. So one of the ways that the company plans to improve work-life balance is through a non-obligatory crunch policy that isn't brand new, but that the Warsaw-based CD Projekt Red plans to push harder. So apparently this policy's already been in place. But basically the point is that when developers are asked to work nights and weekends during crunch, it's not mandatory. Now, Schreier does point out here that, even when something is officially not mandatory, when your boss asks you to do it, it's kind of important that you do it. So, I mean, he does have a solid point there that, if your fellow employees are all working nights and putting in the extra hours and you're not, then if who's going to look better in the boss's eyes, basically. And then, you start thinking, okay, if layoffs are coming down the road, who's going to be at the bottom of the list? So he does have a point there. And it's unfortunate that crunch has kind of become a standard in the game development industry. Now, if it's short periods of crunch, I look at that and I think, okay, that makes sense. And to an extent, I'm okay with it. On the one hand, developers should know what they're getting into when they get into this job. On the other hand, I feel like ideally it shouldn't be necessary in any job, because work-life balance is important. I mean, if your job is starting to take a toll on your health, and it is a real concern when it comes to crunch periods with a lot of these game development companies. I mean, that's not good for the developer, obviously, but it's not good for the company either, because if your people are starting to burn out, then you have to find, you're eventually going to have to replace them. Or if you're covering if you're giving them medical coverage, that can be a negative too, and things like that. So anyway, I don't know. In some ways, this is really confusing because it seems like this is only a story because they wanted to make it a story. Like, okay, yes, crunch is a problem in the industry. CD Projekt Red is trying to make improvements, or is preemptively sort of trying to get ahead of the negative press, I suppose. I don't know. I don't understand fully why this is a story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is one of these scenarios where, they reached out to him to try and, to answer some questions that were pretty common and to kind of get out ahead of any kind of like super negative press that might bubble up, and this is a good way to get ahead of it, because again, it's like there was a certain YouTuber who went out of their way to put out a lot of these alarm bells a little bit more than a year ago, and they really did so to kind of like puff themselves up. They used bad sourcing. They didn't confirm anything. They didn't double check anything. They caused a lot of pain to the company, and it caused the company to lose. They had a significant stock drop when the story came out, because again, a lot of people at the time just ran with it. Now you have to be kind of a little bit more careful of this stuff. So basically, I think they decided to kind of like set the record straight or reconfirm stuff so that it didn't become an issue, say, in 2 or 3 weeks when, the other information was really out there and really good. You kind of like head off the story. And again, lots of people do this. It's really necessary in a lot of scenarios, in a lot of situations. Unfortunately so. But that's the truth, is that it basically boils down to basically being an issue where you want to head stuff off, to do so and to make it as clean as you can without necessarily going overboard. And so we end up getting this. So nothing is really something that you should really worry about. They're basically just confirming this, talking about better industry standards. It's going to get them a lot of press, positive press, in the next few days, but the most important thing is that it's not going to open the door, or the door isn't going to be left ajar for a story to come in from a major publisher going, oh my goodness, did you hear that they're basically like, I don't want to use that one word because it'll get me in trouble. They're basically like people who make other people work for free without, with only taking like minimalistic care of them, without really valuing them as an individual, and certainly not individual rights. And then they're basically just driving them towards a particular goal with a whip. If you get
rhymes with graves, yeah.
So that's kind of like how they want to avoid that, because if you have that suddenly happen out of nowhere, it's like, ooh, that's not healthy. It's not healthy to anybody, especially to them. So,
Right. But in other non-news about CD Projekt Red, they have money, apparently.
Yeah.
There's been rumors swirling that their finances are in trouble, but there's really no evidence that this is true. This is based off of some less than desired sales of some of their games, I suppose, recently. Gwent, I guess, has not been selling as well as they expected.
Just Gwent.
Right.
And
they are still making truckloads
GOG.
of money off the Witcher series, which still, blows my mind. And it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're fantastic games. Witcher 3 is utterly fantastic, but... Right, so there's been some rumors swirling that they were in financial trouble because Gwent wasn't selling well, but in this article with Schreier as well,
if you ever need to understand why these journalists are full of garbage, this is why. It's like, hey, so I heard that 2 of your minor products that have typically been less than 5% of their overall income, I heard they weren't doing so well. You're clearly headed towards bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm. To be fair to Jason Schreier here, he says there have been rumors of financial trouble, but that Iwinski and Badowski both deny this and point out they have a big war chest, which is basically their money in the bank that they
So Gwent didn't sell well. So what you're saying is you're going bankrupt.
Right.
Yeah,
now,
that meme. I'm going to use that meme because I think I still think it's funny.
Again,
so what you're saying
I want to point out, just because we've been critical of Schreier and Kotaku in the past. It's not Schreier in this article that's making the implication.
Yes, it is. I disagree with you at this point. I very strongly disagree with you.
I haven't seen it in here.
He brought it up,
right?
Meaning that he's valuing what they're saying. He's valuing what these random stories are saying to the point that he's actually bringing it up and saying, "You're not going bankrupt, are you? There's been some really terrible rumors." If I'm a journalist, I'm never the journalist is never even some of these like really disgusting journalists that you see in other areas of the industry, where they're like, you're not thinking about, no, I can't say that. It's like you're not a full-time criminal, are you? There's been some rumors. The only reason why you're asking that question is to have them say, "No, I'm not a criminal," so that they could put up, "So and so denies that they're a criminal." Oh my goodness! What do you mean? This person's a criminal? What? Where did this come from? This is the gotcha journalistic media line of giving of proposing a question, so that, again, and we don't see it here because Schreier doesn't actually dislike CD Projekt Red, but he is fishing for something to make his headline, right? Because if this was answered in any bit of a different way, or from any kind of way that he could spin it into really, really moving tons of things while still retaining a general semblance of professionalism by him, he absolutely would have led with this, CDPR denies bankruptcy rumors. That would have been I'm sure that's a headline that he was at one point throwing around in his head, because that would get a lot of clicks.
Potentially.
That would get a ton of clicks. And that's basically what a lot of these journalists are interested in. They want nothing more than the clicks. They don't care about anything else. And to them, being able to phrase that question, it's just one of those things you throw out there in the middle of an interview. And if you're ever being interviewed by somebody and they throw one of these questions out at you, you got to remember that this person, they may be looking for just generalized truth. They may be, trying to do their job pretty well. But if they throw out one of these questions where it's like a hidden gotcha question, it's like, "Hey, do you beat your kids?" It's like, you don't even have kids. So how are you going to reply to that in a way that's going to make them happy? And the truth is, you can't.
No,
because any answer that you
refuse to give an answer that would be like,
you look
so-and-so
like
refuse to answer about whether or not they viciously discipline their non-existent children.
Yeah. And so anytime you see a question like this coming from somebody, they're trying to set you up, or they're trying to give themselves the option to set you up should the rest of the interview not go very well, or should they suddenly need a hot take to kind of run with.
I agree with you very strongly on that is kind of, it's nothing new, but journalism has gotten really bad in that way recently, and
it's so
we
dead.
have pointed out numerous cases where it seems like they're just fishing for the rage click stories. They're just going out of their way to I don't even want to get into it, but there's been numerous examples where they're just very recently, where they're just fishing for those rage clicks. But I do think it's fair for him to address the rumors that are swirling. We may disagree on that, but I feel like if there are legitimately rumors going around, and he has the opportunity to set the record straight in an interview, I feel like that's fine. You may feel like he was fishing for something there. Mm-hmm. Whatever, we can agree to disagree on
now,
that. But
let me reply
agree.
Let me reply to Kenneth's question. Wasn't there some concern about GOG not doing well? Yeah, GOG has not been doing well. Between the whole Epic and Steam fight, there's been a lot of issues going on, and a lot of these secondary like indie studios that were going to launch their games on GOG have been really just hit by a train because, GOG now can't keep up with this big, gun show that's pulled up out of nowhere. And it's not so it's not doing well, but like I said, this is less than 5% of what the company invests anything into. It used to pull them a lot of extra cash, which was very nice when you get a little bit of extra cash in your wallet. That's good, but it's not something that they invest heavily in. And when it started to underperform, they just cut some of the jobs there because you can argue whether that's a good idea or not. But basically, it's like you've got these two big titans duking it out. Do you want to invest more money in it, or do you want to just kind of like wait to see where the wind blows after the fact? It's a very measured response, and it's not like these. Yeah, it's not like these jobs were in the hundreds and people got laid off like crazy. It's like a few people basically got outsourced, and I mean, in all honesty, they probably were able to pick up a job at one of the titans that are currently duking it out. So yeah, it's a little inconvenient for a couple of people. It is kind of sad. I wouldn't have played it this way. I would have gotten a little bit more sassy probably, and tried to do a couple things to kind of make things a little try and level the playing field for myself in this one particular scenario. However, I'm that's entirely up to their that's their call.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. We have some other topics to get onto here, but first I want to address a couple of questions that have come up in the live chat. Godzilla asks, what is happening with Borderlands 3 getting pulled from the Epic Games Store just a few hours ago? There has been a lot of confusion around this Epic Mega Sale, or whatever they're calling it, that Epic is doing right now. And, there has been multiple publishers that have pulled their games or pulled out of the sale. It looks like there wasn't very good communication about what was going on there. And so it's kind of been a confusing mess. And
yeah,
I don't even fully understand what's going on. But it's probably a temporary thing that they pulled their pre-order because they didn't want it to be part of this sale. And there's market things at play there with perceived value, etc. And they're not the only game that has done that. There was a couple other games that were up for pre-order that got pulled down. There are other games that have opted in, and there were a few games where the prices over the past few days were fluctuating wildly. It's been an interesting situation over there. So anyway, it's probably just a temporary thing while they get things sorted out on that end. And I'm sure it'll be back for pre-order. It's not being, I don't think anyway, it's being pulled off of the Epic Store. I mean, they've signed on the dotted line. They are selling it there exclusively for 6 months after release. And Kenneth White asks, are you guys going into what happened with Outer Wilds at some point, or did the Phoenix Point podcast basically cover it? Well, I would say it's pretty much the same situation as Phoenix Point. Outer Wilds was a crowd-funded game. Epic comes along, tells them, hey, we are going to, we'll give you X amount of dollars to sell exclusively on the Epic Games Store. And so even though Outer Wilds was promising Steam keys to its backers, Epic has the capital to say, we'll give you more money than, they'll basically get enough money that they could refund all of their backers and still come out ahead. That's the kind of money that Epic is throwing around at this point. We characterized this in our latest Gaming After Dark episode, and we did it as a joke because it happened the one time with Phoenix Point, but it's happened again, and so they're basically showing they are not above doing that kind of a thing multiple times. And so the backlash against them for Phoenix Point basically didn't get through, or it got through and they just don't care. So Anyway,
Well,
that's just the
again-
kind of behavior we've come to expect from the Epic Game Store. And it's like they're using these Kickstarter campaigns, these crowdfunding campaigns as an indicator. Hey, that game's really popular. There's people throwing their money at it. Let's go buy it, and like basically buy out the the crowdfunding out from under it. So the people back this game, and that just kind of attracts the interest of the big dog, who basically comes and snatches the sausage. Then,
yeah, it's yeah.
I guess there's not much more to say about that. We've talked this to death in previous podcasts, so we won't dive too much into it. But that's basically
I mean, they are really setting themselves up for some major league. I'm trying to find a good example to really encompass it, but I can't really like quantify it any more than how we already have so many times over. It's like there's a lot of developers who they understand that their current indie studio, their current project, it might just be a stepping stone for them to get a really good position in an already existing company. So there's a lot of developers who approach it that way. They want to get into game making. They have a good vision, but they only have like one or two good ideas. So they work on the best idea that they have. They present it out so that they can get picked up by a bigger studio if it does mildly well, and then that's their ticket in. Some developers only think like that. Other developers think like, I'm going to make a game now, and then I'm going to make another game in like 4 years. So if I can guarantee my financing for the next 5 years, and by then the smoke will have blown over. And depending on the audience and the age group and the type of people that you're aiming the product at, for your next product in 5 years, you very well may not ever sell any games to the existing market that's criticizing you. So that happens as well. So
right.
for some of these developers, it's a calculated risk. And
I have to say that I don't entirely blame the developer if they take that deal. I mean, if everyone wants job security. That's very important. Mm-hmm. You have to feed your family at the end of the day. You have to feed yourself and have a place to live. We have this idea, this romanticized version of wanting people to like wanting these companies to say, no, I'm going to stick with my commitments to my backers. But at the end of the day, when that might leave them still in a position of of financial instability, whereas taking this Epic deal might secure their job, secure their studio for the next 5 years. Now we can debate about whether or not that's ethically right, but it's definitely an understandable trade-off that they would make.
Yeah. So we want to backtrack just a little bit and answer this question about the whole Anthem comparison. We kind of touched on it a little bit near the beginning, where we were talking about the old rumors that had been around about their development processes and their overtime and that kind of stuff.
Talking about Cyberpunk now again, and yes, let me just clarify here. So in the Kotaku article with Schreier, there was an employee that reached out to Jason Schreier from CD Projekt Red, who said former employee who said that when they were reading Kotaku's expose on the development of Anthem, that they saw a lot of parallels between that and the development of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah. So let me first reply that this pool of the amount of people that this could be referring to is incredibly small. It's like 5 people. As far as being directly in the know. So that's going to be one of the lead writers, one of the I can't remember his other name, the guy who went to go work for Blizzard. As far as we know, we've had nothing to prove any of these concerns that this one particular claim is making. And let's just dig into it a little bit. So the quote is that Jason got from this employee is that I felt that there are hundreds of parallels that could be drawn between the story of the rocky development of Anthem and the story of the rocky and even more rocky to become development of Cyberpunk 2077. So, I know that this is, for the most part, complete BS. That this is going to be somebody just from the way that it's stated, from the way that Jason doesn't refer to it anymore, just says, oh yes, this former CDPR employee. If he had said former, developer on Cyberpunk, that would have been something different. But he doesn't say that. He says former CDPR dev. Now, if Jason was wanting to like give more credence to this statement, he would have identified that this employee worked on both Cyberpunk 2077 and for CDPR, but he didn't because it doesn't exist. And I'm need to be quite clear on this. I don't think it exists. Out of all the people that I know that have left CDPR since the larger group of the post Witcher group left. So the people who were working on the Witcher, but they're just moving on to different products. They're moving on to different places. Their visa is up. They need to move to a different country or move back to their home country. There's a whole ton of reasons why people leave the company.
Okay, we have Saib has just gone completely robot voice. His human voice filter there has completely switched off for some reason, so we're just going to give him a sec. We have a bad connection on Discord right at the moment, so I'm just going to take a look at the live chat here for a second. So Andre Velasquez, wow, thank you so much for the super chat. Thanks for buying us that coffee. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that.
Sorry,
Cybsidian, we have you back. Excellent. Okay,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Where
did I
voice
drop
filter
out?
there? So you were talking about right at the point where you were talking about the majority of. So there was sort of an exodus from the company after The Witcher 3.
Which is
getting switched over.
Yeah, so this is completely normal. So these people, a lot of them who were not currently working on Cyberpunk, not very many of those people left. The bulk of the people who did leave were the standard, stereotypical exodus of people that you have when you go from one project and you've now basically completed it and you're moving into a brand new project. That's where people often will say, whew, I now have this on my resume. Let's see if I can get an extra 10K a year. And my voice thing is going into the orange again. Am I still good?
You still sound fine. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's in the red now. Okay. All right. So basically what this so I can do some calculations out of all the people that I know that have left, and I've kept a pretty close tabs on all of them. It could be one or two of the higher profile people who said this, which would be very concerning. But I don't believe that's so. I really don't believe that's so. In fact, I'm almost positive that's and I would encourage everybody to basically ignore this. And the primary reason is that they're showcasing this game. They're not showcasing a video of this game. They're showcasing the game soon, which is more than what BioWare did. BioWare put out some stuff that you could kind of see the problems before, and we don't see that here, and we certainly don't get the same feeling. Now, of course,
they showcased the game a year ago, the actual game, playing the game, not a pre-prepared video at when they did their showcase at E3, which cannot be said about Anthem. They the E3 where they revealed Anthem, they basically had cobbled a trailer together from stuff that didn't exist. And then we're like, okay, we have to go make this now.
Yeah, the game as it was shown in the trailer didn't exist. And you could tell that now looking back on it, because it was a completely edited thing. Whereas with Cyberpunk, with the gameplay, you didn't have that. You had the conversation system, you had the combat system. don't forget that the press did get to see, Mad Queen included, got to see what the game was like from a different perspective, from a completely different angle. So you saw more of the conversation system, a little less of the combat. You still had some of the combat, but not really that much. So this is where this claim starts to fall apart. And I think that this person who's making this claim, I think I know who they are within about 3 people probably. And it was the 3 people that I mentioned before, the ones who have it out for CD Projekt Red. They hate this company. They don't just dislike this company. Well, one of them kind of dislikes the company. They don't really hate it. But one of these guys absolutely hates this company with a burning passion. He wants to see everything they touch burn because he was so angry at what happened and how it was handled and all this stuff, which basically boiled down to his problems. He couldn't communicate well. He couldn't explain himself. He constantly made some very derogatory statements that got him in trouble time and time again. And his hatred has burned now throughout the whole process. I believe this is this person. With a strong confirmation, because there's only like I said, there's a very small handful of people that left the project, that have left the Cyberpunk project, and 2 of them are quite well known, but they got headhunted by a bigger company offering a huge bonus. And again, if you have kids, if you're wanting to start a family, if you're wanting to not be second fiddle, if you want to be first chair, so to speak, then this is your chance. And it's not because they don't see potential, it's because they were being offered, the one guy who went with Blizzard, it hasn't been made public, but I've heard that his signing bonus was like several $1 million.
Right.
So
how are you going to turn that down?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, I can't blame him for turning that down. Could he be this source? I really doubt it. I really doubt it, because that's not something that you do when moving to a brand new company. You have way too much on your plate. He's involved in creating a brand new IP for Blizzard. You think he's got time to talk to Jason about some random ass complaint about Anthem? Possibly if they were at the same dinner party or something out in LA, maybe this happened, and that would be very concerning. But the bulk of the evidence does not point this way, because again, we've seen too much of the gameplay to quantify. We've seen too much of the gameplay well over a year and a half ago to even draw a comparison. Anthem basically was made in 14 months. Okay, so 14 months ago, we saw way more of this game than Anthem currently had at its completion. So they've had more than 14 months to, if it was the exact same scenario, they've already had twice the amount of time to polish and to get things up to snuff.
Right. So, I mean, could there be some parallels you could draw? Well, of course. I mean, you can draw comparisons between an elephant and a rocking chair.
Yeah.
There could be some parallels, and of course, if someone's got it out for the company, those are going to be the focus, and it's like, oh yeah, it's going horribly. But I mean, it's really not looking like there's any significant similarities between the 2 situations. The companies are managed very differently, and of course, CD Projekt Red is not perfect, and there are going to be issues, there are going to be problems. I would say probably. I mean, you're going to find stuff in every company, and you're going to find people who are dissatisfied, like we mentioned at the beginning. But we're not giving this a ton of credence.
No, and again, the way that it was thrown in, just kind of coyly, it's there to draw in clicks. It's there to get shared around. It's there to get people to go, oh my God. It's there for the drama. Because what's better than a drama of saying, hey, that biggest game that we're expecting within the next 12 months, the game that's going to revolutionize, tons and tons of stuff, and it's going to be the greatest send off for the current gen, and it's going to be the great kickoff of the next gen. Yeah, you know that game? Oh my goodness, it might be the worst game ever made. And then you have people suddenly stopping in their chairs going, "Whoa, wait, what? Oh my goodness!" And they're going to share around the article, and they're going to click and click and click and click, and that's what Jason is doing, and that's why we've said before that a lot of this stuff, that a lot of this info is there to do that, because there's not that much there for him to report on in general. So he throws this little bit in that I'm sure he got a hold of, because there's lots of people who send in random crap stuff to these journalists, and they got to sort through it. And this is one that I don't think he vetted. I don't think he vetted it at all. And if it's the person that I'm thinking of, then this is kind of like a roll your eyes, like, yeah, we know this guy has problems. Like, seriously.
Right.
This guy has so many problems.
All right, everybody. We love seeing you also active in the live chat. Been great conversation today. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link to that in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. All right. So, couple more things we wanted to talk about. Minecraft Earth, that was just announced yesterday, and it's an interesting idea. Yeah, why don't we talk about that first? Minecraft Earth announced a new augmented reality game for mobile, based on the Minecraft IP, of course. Basically, they're going the Pokemon Go route, bringing Minecraft into the real world, in quotes. Of course, it's augmented reality. You use your phone to look around, and you can see things that people have built in Minecraft in the real world. And so basically, you can build things Minecraft style, place them on real world geography, and you can have, there are little mobs that run around in them. There are different things. There's going to be different game modes, including some survival combat stuff. So it looks really interesting. The reveal trailer was quite clever and quite cute. I quite enjoyed watching that. So anyway, really interesting idea, and let us know your reactions to this, especially if you're a Minecraft fan. What did you think of this game concept, Sybe?
Overall, it's like, this is some of the stuff that from the HoloLens technology that we've been waiting for. I was really disappointed when they kind of like pulled back progress on that, because I saw the advantage to regular VR, VR, in the AR tech, and Microsoft pulled back on it because they saw lackluster sales for the VR tech, and they thought that the technology wasn't quite there yet. I'm glad that they've still continued to work on this, and pulling it into the Minecraft thing is probably fairly brilliant, and making it in this current system and setup that they've got really good. And I'm really tempted to like make a giant like billboard in Minecraft that says subscribe to the Triple S League channel, and just drop it everywhere I go. But it's like
that would probably get. There is, and actually, just touch on Kenneth White says, so there's going to be blocky penises everywhere. Well,
yeah,
very likely. And in my reaction video yesterday, I pointed out that kids are going to use this to write swear words on the schoolyard. There is a reporting and sort of safety system, so stuff like that'll probably result in people getting banned or some kind of disciplinary action, or at least having the things removed. I mean, I don't know how closely they'll stay on top of that, but there is always that kind of an aspect when you're giving people creative power to, that they're going to make genitalia and swear words. But, and then, yeah, like, as far as personal promotion, I wonder, I don't know if they would allow that or not.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where it's like, this is kind of interesting. Where are they going to go with it? So, I mean, like, we saw how it went. Overall, they're basically making like the new Pokemon game, except you're going to be able to add stuff to the world as well as take stuff from the world. So that's really kind of interesting. It'll also be really interesting as you're driving around and using the AR lens to see how many, like, where all the action's at. Like, it's going to probably be around, like, a lot of, like, middle schools, like you know, the early schools. You're just going to see stuff everywhere constantly. And then you're going to see it like a breadcrumb trail going out to the city from wherever these schools are. It's going to be kind of hilarious in that regard. And then you might see some really interesting stuff. This is definitely an interesting thing. It's an interesting perspective. It's a very, very cool way of looking at it, trying to bring things in. So yeah, it's something that I'm definitely going to keep my eye on. AR tech is definitely better than VR tech overall, because AR can do everything that VR can, plus like 100% more. So ultimately, I think that this is a good move. That this is probably going to be a very well done game. That they probably put a lot of time and effort into it. I didn't really get why they had the one girl. I think they could have probably picked a better actress for the first commercial, because she not that she didn't do a good job. She did a great job. But she seemed to be a little bit too old for what they were going for. Like a fair bit too old. The average Minecraft player is like between 9 and 12. They should have gone for a girl who was maybe like 13, 14-ish, and looked a little bit more like that. This one was a little bit too much through a corporate lens of, like, you could tell that corporate had, you know, final say in this. But it's the smallest complaint that I have about their rollout of this so far, is that the actress was, again, nothing against her performance. Her performance was fine, and she was quite good at what she was doing. So she probably was the best person who applied for or who auditioned for the role. But it was just that I feel that they were a little bit off in their target marketing of the target audience, and that's it. That's my only complaint that I have.
Right.
Kala in the chat, you do bring up a good point, is that, you know, maybe they're looking at how more of those Minecraft users from a year or two ago have grown up a little bit more. So again, it's totally possible.
Well, and older kids are more likely to have phones and iPads or iPods and things like that. Now, the curious thing about this for me, and I got into it a little bit in my reaction video yesterday, is that when you have video games that are bleeding over into the real world like this, there's going to be some interesting things happening that we've probably never seen before. For example, I speculated, you know, I wonder if Minecraft tourism would be a thing, where people travel around the world
possible. Yeah.
to see things that people have built in Minecraft. I also wonder about, are people going to get hurt because they try to step onto something that doesn't exist in the real world, or, you know, somebody builds a Minecraft bridge across a canyon, and then somebody who's just a little too lost in the game decides to try to step out onto this and falls and kills himself. Like, things like that. I mean, they're probably not terribly likely to happen, but that people get lost in these things. And especially if you're looking at your phone and you're not paying attention to what is going on around you. Saib, you were telling me yesterday about the, how people were using Pokemon Go in some cases as bait to lure people into areas to get mugged.
Yeah.
And I've kind of a funny story from, I took my daughter to one of these VR arcade places last week. It was a birthday party. And the lady who works there was telling us a story about they had a 50-something-year-old woman who came in, and she had never done VR in her life, and so she put on this headset, and I don't know what she was playing, but it was some kind of a game where you had to, like, step and jump off of something into some water or something, and she spent like 20-25 minutes just trying to psych herself up, because, you're so immersed in this world. It looks like, your brain is telling you, you step off this edge, you're going to fall. So she spent 25 minutes psyching herself up. And then, finally, She says, "Okay, I'm going for it." And she did a swan dive right into the floor. And that, now, interestingly...
The amount of stupidity in that is so fucking... so ducking funny.
Ducking Dunny.
The ducks laugh at this hysterically because this is so funny. And you can see how this, like, you know, it's like this one person who's like they put on cruise control and they think it's the autopilot.
Yeah.
Like, no. It just maintains course and heading. It doesn't steer the dang car or brake when you need to brake.
Yeah, it maintains your speed. That's all. But that just goes to show how immersed you can get in these game worlds. And you know, people walk down the street texting on their phone and they run into things because they're not even playing a game. So I think there are some real world concerns there. By the way, this lady who did the swan dive into the floor, apparently she's a regular customer there now, so it didn't ruin her experience totally. But I don't think she was injured. She just surprised the crap out of herself. But anyway, and
do they at least have padded floors?
No, they're just like normal linoleum floors.
Oh, that's no fun. Seriously, people, like, it's hilarious to think. It's so hilarious to think about. But this is yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. But anyway, so I do hope that they have some safety measures, like maybe they don't allow you to place things on dangerous topography. But then again, that would restrict the freedom of the game, and it would be fun to like put a cabin up in the mountains or something. I don't know. There are probably some things that are going to come out of this. There's definitely going to be memes, but there's probably going to be trends and things coming out of this that we've just never seen before, and that's kind of exciting to see. Like, you remember when geocaching is actually still a thing. I have friends who still do it, but it was really big a few years back, and it was just like something. It's just a hobby that didn't exist 10 years ago because we didn't have the technology for it, but now we do. So yeah, I think that's what I'm most excited for from this, is to just watch the trends that emerge and the things that people do with this technology. This is emergent gameplay to the max, because it's emerging into the real world.
Yeah.
Kenneth White says, I really got into my gaming while on painkillers once. I'd hate to think what AR would be like under similar influence. Yes, absolutely. And, you know, with pot becoming legal in a lot of areas now, there could be some interesting things happening.
Well, I mean, you know, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you need to cook up an egg or something, a small pot totally works. So, again, for the censor. I know, guys, I know. It's for the censor.
I think we're past the 1/3 mark, but, well.
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah. Overall, I think that this game is probably a really good idea, and it will... And it's pretty safe, too. And so we're going to see a big company try out some stuff, try out some cool tech that might revolutionize tech for future games. And that's really what I'm happy to see.
All right, and then we've just had a question about our next topic in the chat here, and we're going to dive into that right now. Sony and Microsoft are joining up in an unusual alliance, because we think of them typically as competitors in the gaming, in the console industry, and they definitely are. But they have signed something called what is it called now? A Memorandum of Understanding, which is basically a fancy word for a handshake deal, where they say they're going to collaborate on some things, including gaming streaming technology based on Microsoft's Azure platform.
It's the counter to the Stadia technology from Google, and this is why we know 100% that Google and Amazon are not screwing around. They are in this for the long haul. They want to take over the entirety of the gaming industry. You think what Epic's been doing has been jarring and shocking? Just wait until, you know, these other companies, Google and Amazon, step into the ring. Because they are behemoths in and of themselves, and they are complete authoritarian control archetypes. They want to control everything. Amazon doesn't is interested in weeding out as much competition. Same with Google, and this is going to come down to a big brawling fight. And that at the moment, there's a very strong possibility that Sony and Microsoft could get taken out in just the first salvo of the new console gen. So and Sony is definitely on the blocks. I know people don't take that seriously, and people are like, Sony's great, Sony's the best it's ever been. Right now, Microsoft is more likely to die than Sony is. And I won't get into it, but right now it's like these companies are reacting to this new threat, and they're reacting to it by saying, okay, let's just get this understanding that we're not going to attack each other, okay? Let's work together as best as we can to kind of get everything more or less under control and not end up face planning, so to speak, into the dirt. Let's try and do what we can to survive right now. And we're going to do this by kind of teaming up, sharing a little bit of resources when it comes to the streaming thing. They've set it up they're laying the groundwork to, basically have this kind of like generalized positive commitment in not trying to screw each other over while these two bigger corporates are trying to screw them over. So that's really what it's going to boil down to, and we have to be really, really careful. They have to be really, really careful going forward to not draw the ire of either of these mega companies to the point where they end up like going like full fisticuffs. So yeah, so this is what's going on, and yeah,
interesting. So they're really kind of it's an alliance of necessity against Amazon and Google, basically, or to sort of preserve themselves in the industry. All right. Was there anything more to say on that?
No, I do want to bring up another quick story, though. It's about NVIDIA. There were a lot of people who are pointing out that NVIDIA is on the chopping block and it's going to die, and those people don't know what they're talking about. So back in the last quarter, they made a little over $3 billion. Now their latest reports is they've made $2 billion. And a lot of people are like, they've lost 1/3 of their business. No, they've lost 1/3 of profits. And this is because there are, like any industry, there's years where you sell a lot more and you sell a lot less. Due to the whole cryptocurrency rush and the way that their stock was kind of flying out the door, they made a ton of money off of that kind of stuff, and they're not in the hole at all. Mm-hmm. The company is very, very much sitting on a giant mountain of money, and this was just a small decrease in the amount of money that was piled onto the current mountain. This was not a removal of any of the existing mountain.
But that's and it's relative to, like you said, the boost they got during the crypto rush. So
and right now, most people understand that we're about to enter a new age of computing and graphics and all that kind of stuff. This stuff happens, and right now they've actually downscaled their production on existing lineup stuff to only meet basic demand because they're investing and working out all the new generation tech that will be coming in the next 8 to 16 months. And you're going to see this big explosion of this new tech, this new stuff that they're bringing out. It's huge. What they're working on is really, really, really huge. But I wanted to throw this out there because a lot of people were kind of concerned. There's some people who have said that NVIDIA is a dying company. And so their numbers is like they went from making $3 billion to making $2.2 billion.
People
They're
really
still
need
making
to read,
billions.
Billions of dollars. People really need to read Chicken Little.
Yeah.
The sky is not falling, people. It was just a drop of rain.
Yeah. Sky is not falling. This company is headed by some very smart financial people. They've never They've never risked everything off of a fad. They will never risk everything off of a fad. They will be going down the line, trying to create and trying to respond to the market demands as they encounter them. That's the whole point of their company. And yeah, so this is something that they're working towards. They have some really good tech coming down the road. It's going to be really cool. Yes, they're not. They currently don't have maybe necessarily the best stuff at the moment, but in the world of graphical cards and computer stuff, it's like, yeah, that usually only hangs around for a season or two. So, don't be panicked. And if you're looking at doing an upgrade, just kind of hold off on it, because there's some, like we've seen with the VR stuff, there is some amazing stuff coming down the road. There is some cool stuff that's going to be announced very shortly. The latest VR tech is through the roof. The latest stuff that we have going on in the gaming world is about to hit a brand new level. Like, all this stuff is coming. It's just, and naturally people who supply this stuff are obviously going to see a little bit of a dip before the big sale hits, right? So, you don't often tend to sell out your stock the day before, Black Friday. Just saying, and if you think that's the case, then I'm sorry, you're kind of an idiot. But that's just me being brutally honest and not having a filter. So yeah, if you go to the store the day before the big sale starts and you're like, look, there's so few people in here, I really don't think the sale is going to be very big. Yeah, like, you're comparing. I don't even know why you would even try to make that comparison, but there's a lot of people who do. It's like, yeah, okay. So anyways, that's a little mini rant that I wanted to say today, because I just thought it was so stupid. The company is burning, it's dying. Why? Oh, they only made $2 billion this year in profits. In profits, compared to when they made $3 billion last year. It's like,
Yum Lemon Kebab says,
I need
you
to
have a filter? Well, yeah, it's constantly malfunctioning.
It's like, do I need to explain to you what profits are? Like, good Lord, these people are stupid.
All right, everybody, we thank you so much for listening and supporting the show, for the great conversation in the chat. I want to especially thank our Patreon supporters, Shannon Vega, Old Man Manson, and our anonymous supporters, our channel member, Captain Dammit, Andre Velasquez, for the super chat today. We appreciate the financial support, but we also appreciate those of you who support us in all of the other important ways, liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this show around with your friends and with your online communities. That helps the channel grow, so we really appreciate that. And also, the great conversation in the chat. You guys make this show, and ladies, you all make this show fantastic and a lot of fun to do, but also I feel that it just helps us produce some great content when we have, the chat to respond to. So thank you so much. Don't forget to slam that like button before you close your tab or move on to some other video. Slam that like button, and also subscribe if you appreciate this content. If you are listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Spotify, we thank you for subscribing, reviewing, and interacting with the shows there as well. And hey, feel free to join us on Saturday mornings and Wednesday evenings for the live show on our YouTube channel, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. We got Rage 2 content coming later today. My name is Asheninity, and on behalf of Subsidian, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week, and more content in the meantime. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.